Feel bright in here.
Welcome to our December meeting. I'm Vicki Fix. I'm the new vice president, and I'm leading the meeting today because Nicole, our new president, is home with a child with COVID. So, we have a couple of announcements before the program. One, the plant sale committee met, and we now have covered all but one of the jobs. The new people heading up the plant sale will be Ellen Bozeman, chair, Lori Jones, retail manager, Brenda Graff, Beth Umberger, and Barbara Kafka, the growing committee, Rosemary Sodden, publicity. I'm going to be the signs manager, and we need a booth manager. So if any of you think you might be interested in that.
Where would there be a booth?
It's booths for the people who like Master Naturalists or the Native Plant Society or Master Gardeners or you know, different organizations. Yeah. You could talk to Ellen if you have questions, if you're thinking you might be interested in that, or any one of the others of the people that I named, I think would be.
I'd like to say it's enormously, oh, I'm sorry.
You better.
No, we can't hear Ruby.
It's enormously successful fundraiser. It has been for the last 3 years. And if you haven't been involved, you've been involved in the planning up to this point, which is the last couple of weeks. If you haven't been involved and you're interested in getting involved, call me or email me. This is Carol. Or you can contact me at NR chapter VNPS@gmail. So let one of these people know, or let me know that you want to get involved, and we'll find something for you to do. Everything needs to be done. So thank you.
Also, the chapter bought some invasive plant books. Those are back on the table. Cheryl, do you want to say anything about them?
We discounted the price for members to $5. Non-members, we're asking for a donation of $10 to $15, whatever you feel like you're moved to give us. And it is the 6th edition, and it's been quite a few years since it's come out, right? Oh, how long? Do you know that? What we the invasive book.
Maybe 7 or 8 years. I don't know.
Oh, okay, so it's been 7 or 8 years. It's just been updated, 6th edition. So get yours while they still last. So, okay, thanks.
Also, the board met this month, and we are going to take over the bare root tree sale that Sustainable Blacksburg has been doing with Plant Virginia natives. I don't think it's going to end up being a lot of extra work for the people in the chapter, but it will bring in some money that we can choose to use for projects that we have. And we're ready for the slides. So if you're going to speak, come up here so that your voice can be heard over the Zoom. And I think Jen is going to kind of coordinate who's next. So, yes.
Okay,
Which one is it?
it's your
The tree rescue.
yeah.
This is Brenda Graff. I'm the new secretary of the chapter this year. One project that we would like to have the chapter work on is called the Tree Rescuers Project. It was started by the Northern Virginia Plant Natives campaign, although they've also got the Plant Northern Virginia Trees campaign, so they're both kind of partnered together. And I'm going to show you a 2-minute introduction video that they have on YouTube, and then I'm going to talk for a couple minutes afterwards about it then.
Everyone loves trees, right? Can you imagine our community without its many species of native trees and the birds and butterflies they support? Wait a minute, what's this? There's something seriously wrong with these trees. Are trees supposed to be fuzzy? They sure aren't supposed to be smothered. Someone needs to tell the owners before their trees are strangled to death and collapse on their houses. Guess what? That someone is us. Most people have no idea that Japanese honeysuckle, Asian wisteria, and Oriental bittersweet wrap around trees and strangle them as they grow. Or that porcelainberry and kudzu will cut off light and smother them. Or that English ivy will weigh them down so they fall over during storms. This is how you can help. First, read the instructions and sign up on Plant Nova Trees website to be a tree rescuer. Walking or biking only in safe public areas. Look for trees that have vines growing on them. Finally, drop off a brochure with the residents to alert them to the problem. Keep a tally of how many at-risk trees you find on each property. Let us know which properties you surveyed and what the total number of at-risk trees was. You can draw us a map or just send us a description. Then submit the data on the recording. What we don't want anyone to do is cut down native vines, which are meant to grow on native trees. It's totally fine if you don't know what kind of vine you're seeing. It will take a lot of people to spot all the trees at risk in Northern Virginia. So the more you can spread the word and recruit your friends to help, the more trees we can save. Everyone loves trees.
Okay, they started that about a year ago, and it seems to be doing pretty good. Basically, volunteers go around the neighborhoods, and she was showing that you look to find out which trees are getting strangled. You write them down, then you'll be given door hangers to go around back to the houses that you had identified, leave the door hangers there. And then we keep track of which areas have been already mapped, so we don't get a second or a third person going back over. As she was saying, you don't need to know which vines are going up the trees. There are ID booklets in that if people are interested. It's best done in the wintertime when all the leaves are gone and you could see the vines strangling them and that. So now is a good time. And the town of Blacksburg, Sustainable Blacksburg, and Plant Southwest Virginia Natives are teaming up to begin a tree rescuer program here in the New River Valley area. They're still working on that. So I believe they've asked the master naturalist to have a representative. I'd like to have a representative from the Native Plant Society just to be a go-between between the people that are working on this and you know, just to go between and that to organize and everything. And so if anybody's interested, I guess contact me for now, and then I'll get you in contact with whoever's in the town of Blacksburg Sustainable. I'm not certain who yet, but they're still working. It's the holidays, so probably won't be until January, but winter's going to be here for another few months, so we won't have to worry about that. I will also send out a post in our listserv probably tomorrow listing the this website and some other information if people want to see what it consists of. So that's one thing that I'd like to our chapter maybe to get interested in this winter time. Okay, the next person is Chad Campbell. However, he's got the flu and can't talk. He was with us at our last December meeting last year, telling us about the Bee Campus initiative. So, he gave me some talking points, which. Okay, that's the, yeah, okay.
Do you want to go back? Here's the website.
Yeah, there is the website, and I've also sent that information over a post on the listserv tomorrow, so you got more information. The B Campus and B City USA are initiatives done by the Xerces Society, and if you're not familiar with the Xerces Society, they're the ones that are trying to preserve our pollinators, our insects and other invertebrates. And this is, as I said, one of their initiatives. It is a long-term commitment. So whatever city or campus signs up for it, they have to fill out an application. They have to promise to do all these different things. It has to be done over a long period of time. It is not a helter-skelter one in that. So apparently, this B Campus and B City were created about 10 years ago, and it's coming along pretty good in that. And Virginia Tech was just certified last spring. So they're just starting to get up and running this year. It also apparently, this B Campus initiative will also go with their climate action commitment, whatever plans that Tech has to try to reduce the carbon footprint and to help the environment in that. Let's see, they have a standing committee. They've got a process for implementing projects that will coordinate the planning, facilities, and landscape design. I do know that Jamie King, the new arborist at Tech, he's one of the co-chairs. I think they've got 3 co-chairs or something like that. They've got the students interested. So far this year, they said that they've got one small project behind Hillcrest Hall. I have no idea where that is, but they planted lavender there. And they said next year, they're hoping to get some more trees, shrubs, and perennial plantings, as well as a potential meadow project. This meadow project is the same one that it's from the Environmental Student Organization at Virginia Tech, and their president contacted us earlier this year asking for our help. So they're trying to do a half-acre meadow or something like that, and meadows are one of the more difficult things, but they're asking for grant help, and I guess B Campus, that'll help them with planning and everything. I know they've contacted a whole bunch of experts already, so they're in the planning stages. They just got to get money for the plants themselves and that. Let's see. And they say that next year they'll be working on more projects. I think 2 or 3 more projects that the students will work on in different areas in that. I asked Susie, and I didn't get back an answer, Susie Leslie, what happened to the Cheatham Hall garden projects. I don't know what the status of that is. Since she's moving out of the area, well, she's in the process of, she needs help with that. So she had started that several years ago with somebody else, and it's just too much for one person to handle. So I've asked this B Campus if that they could make that one of their projects, and that anyways for maintenance and that. So they're going to have to figure out volunteers among the different students, you know, like the students are there for 4 to 6 years or whatever. So those, it's in their hands now. So
I have a question.
Mhm.
We all know Jamie King, but like for the garden for Susie,
mhm,
we went by it about a year ago. No, in summer we looked at it and
mhm,
I took a picture of some nice, there's some primroses or whatever,
mhm.
and all that. But what I'd like to know is, now Jamie King isn't in charge of those properties on campus, right? Some other landscape person must be, or do you know that? Like, who would you approach?
Jamie does the trees,
That's what I thought. So,
does facilities. I don't know. This B Campus thing is, I think Emily Reed and I forget the other people that are involved, but
well, I mean, we need to find that out because, like for Susie's, you know,
Mhm.
maybe I can find that out. I'd like
this
to
would be
help
a
them.
complicated subject to discuss because I have a lot of thoughts about this, but I do agree that why don't they just fix these, work on Susie's, it's got a good start.
Mhm.
But
It's
it
got,
needs to be discussed probably, and, you know.
Well, anyway, we need to find out.
if we can get maybe another representative from our
Yeah, like
chapter.
Jamie's good to work with, we know.
It would
that,
be
but-
really good for us on that chapter because it would be very helpful. Then we know how to help and how to mix the agenda.
Yeah, so,
Well, I know, in other words, Susie knows that her garden, we know,
right,
needs a little help, but there's still a lot of nice things there.
yes.
I mean,
Mhm.
and it's it's enclosed in cement, so.
Right,
they can't
but she's
get out
got two
till somewhere.
invasives, I think she said,
Yeah.
that was starting to
So
run
it's a
rampant.
good one place to start. It isn't too big.
And the
Yeah.
more network we do, the better we all work together.
Yeah,
We
the
all do
networking.
that.
Mhm. So I think we do need somebody, a representative from our chapter to be with the B campus too then, so we can, as people here are saying, that it would be good to get network involved in that then. Okay, so this is another one. I'll send out information tomorrow about the website, both with the Virginia Tech's version and the whole B campus initiative with Xerxes anyways. And if anybody's interested in being the liaison with them, I guess contact me again and then I'll find out who to contact there to get the representative to work with that then. Basically, that's all that I have then.
Thank you. Good. Wait, get him from there. You'll be closer to the computer. And then you know how to make Fred here.
Hey, Fred, you could turn off your video.
I just texted him and asked him if he could hear us.
Oh, no.
He's talking, but you can't hear him.
He's muted.
Okay.
How many people
All
do we have on this thing? I
Okay.
don't know.
Do we have anybody else besides Fred on the Zoom?
Yeah, it says there's 6 people.
Six.
Oh, okay.
So can you
wow.
take Fred off of there then? How come he's on there?
It's just showing us one.
I'm on Debbie's, Brenda's computer somehow, I don't know.
If
You're good.
You can hardly hear her.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay. It distracted me, sorry.
No, I understood.
So this is a trumpet vine. And this was taken in Greece. And they use trumpet vine a whole lot. They use a lot of different vines, but all kinds of different vines. And they also use Virginia creeper. I've seen it for sale in the nurseries.
Be sure and speak up because we're hard of hearing. Yeah, and you're facing the other way.
I'll get a trumpet for you. So these are at the nursery right now. This is actually an old picture, but there's also a whole line of them more now. And so these are native plant seedlings. So I take the seeds from the our plants at the museum. Some of them have local provenance. This year I'm trying something different. I'm trying leaves, sand, and soil. I could not get chick grit. Usually I used to use chick grit years ago. It was granite. I could get it in southern states, but they don't. And now you have to buy all this nutrient stuff. Like I think it works because Fred bought me something that we tried. We'll see if it works. Okay. And then what I'm going to try differently this year, those are styrofoam containers or grate containers. And then that's just refrigerator grates. So this year, I'm going to try something different because I have to wait so long for these to sprout. So they need about 60 days, some of them just 30 and some are 90. So I'll look that up and then I'm going to take them inside. I have lights in the basement. We don't heat our basement. We have a wood stove. So in April, that's when it gets cold. That's when all my annuals are down there and it doesn't work. So I'm going to take these in earlier and see if I can get them to go. This is and maybe Bruce can help with I should have sent them to him so he could figure it out. This is thimbleweed anemone. This is at the museum and that little guy he's got one of those anthers down. Either he's eating the pollen or collecting the pollen. I don't know, but is that a bee? Bruce, do you think it's? Yeah. So I've noticed at the museums, I'm disappointed because we don't get butterflies, but what we do get is lots of little insects, and that's what's hard to understand, that your garden has lots of things in it, you just can't see them. Okay. And this is a pasture rose, I think. I don't know. It's finally gotten bigger, and it might be another. I might have identified it incorrectly, but this is something I learned about those beetles. You identified those one time, Bruce, but I can't remember what it was. And there's another little syrphid flower for the left. These roses were cut this year. They've been there for a couple of years. These are starting to really look good. They're getting lots of blooms on them, and they always have insects on them. Always little tiny. I learned something about those beetles. So you see a lot of in science, entomology, they call it in tandem when they're mating, but they're not just mating. What I learned that the longhorn beetles, these males of the soldier beetles, same thing. They mate, And then the male hangs on because he doesn't want any other male to have a chance to mate with the female. So they're not mating, they're just hanging out. I know. Yeah. So the next mess. So this has been real exciting for me. This is at Kiwanis Park in Christiansburg. The first time I saw this, maybe 2 years ago, I finally got Mary to come there. I clicked my heels and said, am I in Christiansburg anymore? Because that's Christiansburg. That's the Roanoke Street right down below there. This is underneath the lines. These are Pacra Omni, I can't say it anyway. And this is June. And then later on, I was in there with Mary. I took Mary to show her this, and I said, Mary, that is Rattlesnake Master in there. I saw the foliage. So you can't see a picture of it there. And I couldn't get a good picture of it. And then they mowed it just a couple of weeks ago. I was going to go in there and somebody mowed it. I don't think it was the Appalachian people. I think the Kiwanis guys did, but so the seeds are still there and the plants are still there. I think this is old growth meadow. And if you haven't been to the state meetings, we've both been. Anybody else have been? Go to the state meetings. There's a meeting in the spring where they have talks. And Mary's been, and Mary and I've been together, and Mary laughs because I'm on the edge of my seat. But they're really good talks. They have excellent people. The person they had this year was Kevin Lloyd. And Kevin Lloyd is, I'm paying him. I told Tom Weebolt, there's Rattlesnake Master there. He said it must have been planted. So anyway, so I talked to Townsend. He was at the state meeting. He said, well, if Tom says it was planted, it was planted. So then I finally got Jordan Metzger to come over, but it was Dave, the guy that was selling plants, Dave Bellinger. What is his name? Bellu is a French name. He was selling plants. Anyway, so he was very quiet. He brought his plants to my house. And I said, have you got a few minutes? Because I knew he had worked with Dr. Layton on that mat pasture where they did with the dairy science. I mean, cows was a native. They tried to put as many natives as they could. So he followed me over to Kiwanis Park and he's looking really quietly. And I said, so what do you think? And he, yeah, it looks, it has a plant. So I said, well, they're thinking about putting a bike path right through there. He said, oh no. So I thought I have something here. So then when Jordan Metzger came over, he said, well, I don't think we're going to be able to get this past Tom because there's only 2 other counties in Virginia that have the Rattlesnake Master. So I had planted this year for a garden for the Kiwanis Park way down below. And I had put Rattlesnake Master in there. So after Jordan said that, I went down and got it out because 2 reasons. One is because I'll never get anybody to believe me that that's not from I didn't plant it. And also I don't want the pollen from, that's a Midwest one. I don't want it to mix with this one. Okay. So now in June, Kevin is going to come and Bruce, Kevin's going to come and Jordan's going to bring some of his students so they can see. And you have to go to the courthouse to document it too, because it has never been tilled. So if you can go to the courthouse and show that it was when they first got the property, Native Americans had it for a long time, but when they first got the property, the white people did, settlers, that if they could clear it right away, you had to clear it at a certain time. If they can prove that they went and filed for the property right away, it probably was Meadow. And because it couldn't do it that fast then. And also, Blacksburg used to be called Draper's Meadow, and Christiansburg was Hans Meadow. So there's a very good likelihood that this could be an old growth meadow. And I'm really excited about it. So, and I'm going to take y'all on a walk when it blooms if you want to come. Okay. Yellow jacket. I love this picture. It looks like it's cuddling that little. So this is a late hair figwort. There's early hair figwort, which I got seeds from Nancy Adamson, and I have those down below, but they kind of faded out. And it only has nectar. So it's a little cup of nectar. And this is a little tiny little flower. So I love it. It's one of my favorites. I would always have in a garden. But it's not something that most people would put in their garden. But it's fun to show children because it's called hair figwort, Hare. And so it looks like a little rabbit. And the figwort, because it was used for, what do you call polyps? Is that what you call them? I can't think of the word. Piles, when you had piles. That's okay. It was supposed to be good for that. All right. And this is Fred. And if you've never been to Caldwell Fields, it is gorgeous. And there's lots of, it's really, and that was planted. That was planted, or not.
Jesse did. it.
It's not planted.
It's not planted?
It was not planted. They burn every 3 years to simulate that,
Oh,
the,
I've seen species in there that I've never seen. in Virginia. I've seen purple milkweed.
really.
That did, that was not local.
Well, purple milkweed is.
yes, it is. I
But
think,
I've never seen it grow.
Me either in Virginia. I saw it. Yes. Yeah, so there, I've
Well,
seen
also-
species in there I've never seen anywhere else.
Yeah, but they really,
I think purple, I think it is, we'll have to look it up.
purple
afterwards, but
milkweed's native.
I think it is native
I
to
like- it's
Virginia.
native, but it's in Virginia.
I think so. Well, we'll have to look it up. So you're saying that, well, I'd like to learn the history of that, because I thought a graduate student planted that. Well, anyway, it's really great to go to. Well, that's interesting if they did burn it, because that might be an old growth meta too.
Right, and I meant to find out, I heard that this last summer was one of the most spectacular years.
Would you tell us what time of year to go see?
I think it's July.
Yes,
I
July.
can't remember.
And I meant to ask Jesse, I'll try to remember to ask if.
We should just send an alert to everybody if somebody goes.
Right,
Yes.
we send it to our gardeners.
I
can
think we
send
did
it
this
out,
year,
yeah.
so. Yeah, I believe we did.
But I think it might, the real outstanding years might be the year after the burn, but I'm not sure about that, so that would be interesting to know.
Yeah, I got there once. It's nice.
This is the range map for purple milkweed.
Oh, you're on coast.
So it's on the coast, okay.
Oh, it's
It's
not
coastal.
here. It's red.
It is in Montgomery County.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yes, yes.
and just because it's not on that map, it just means no one has found it and put it in a herbarium. It doesn't mean it's not.
Right,
I mean, it's most likely not, but it doesn't mean it's not.
but that one is,
So this one Bruce identified for me. This is at the museum. This is really easy to grow. For years, I planted seeds and never got to grow. And then one year I got 3 plants. I collected the seed from, over in the river on New Park in Radford.
Visit.
No, not this, down for by the rivers. That's not called
That's
visit. Oh, okay, my bad. Okay, so, anyway, so this is that actually, it's called American Snout Fly. Is it a syrphid?
So, sir.
Okay, and the larvae are associated with animal dung, and the adult gets its nectar from flowers. And this, if you look online, a lot of times it's with this flower that the picture is
Yes.
taken. So this is most species you don't tell by color, but this one is actually by color. This one likes drier. This impatient, it's like the Julie. It likes a drier habitat, so it's more. The orange one is more moist. Okay, this is not a wasp. This is a fly. And Polly was showing me my garden, y'all know, I'm saying Polly, right? Over at the Hale Garden. And she was showing me her garden, and this thing was on there, and it's called the clubbed Midas fly, and it's a mimic of a spider wasp. And the adults flower. They get nectar from the flower, and the larvae live in the soil and decaying matter and eat larvae of the scarab beetle. So scarab beetles would be like Japanese beetles and also June beetles. And this, it's gorgeous. And what's funny there is you can't really appreciate it, how it looks very waspy like, but the end of the abdomen is kind of blunt. And also if you see it from the side, it's kind of flat. So what? And
If you see the tips of the antenna, they're a really interesting shape on the end of the antenna, but it's kind of pointy. It's very different shape. Than we see. So Midas flies, you can identify by the shape.
And it's not a wasp because a wasp has 4 wings and a fly has 2 wings. So that's another thing you can tell. And also they're not out very long. So that's why we don't see them. Some of the things that we see that are so pretty when you see them, that they're just not out long. Huh?
It's big.
And they're very big. It was like, you could not miss it. It's very big. Yeah. And this is a hackberry petiole. Petiole is the stem, leaf of the stem, gall. And they're still on the tree. I should have taken a picture of that because today. And they stay on the tree, they turn brown and they don't harm the tree. And this is a really interesting insect. Anyway, it's that insect it gets sap from the inside, and there could be more than one gall. Sometimes there's, one insect in adult, not adult, but the developing insect in there. It's called a psyllid. How do you say that? Is that? Anyway, it only gets the sap from the plant, which is not nutritionally enough. So it has a bacteria, or it's not really bacteria. I think it's more, but it doesn't have the full, has the smallest, the bacteria that lives with this has the smallest genome, period. It is the smallest genome. So they depend on that little bacteria needs this thing to complete its nutrient. I know, it's real. Yeah, and then there's also 3 parasitoid little wasps that can parasitize that as well. I know. I love insect galls, they're amazing. Okay. So this is one of my favorite plants. I love this plant. And there'll be a lot when it blooms is when Heritage Day is, and there's almost always wasp on it. So it's fun because you can show people, and the wasps do like this a lot. So this guy parasitizes a caterpillar and lays it with its eggs. I don't know how to say that. It's a common threadway swamp. So it's one of those real narrow waste things. And this is my favorite plant now. I got this from Ian. I planted it. This is a cinder bed. This is above my house, and the cinder, they just dump cinders there. And I tried to plant azaleas in there or mountain laurel. Well, it doesn't work. I didn't realize how basic it is. But this plant loves it here. And this is Appalachian bugbane. And it doesn't have nectar. It only has pollen. And it was covered with seeds this year. I'm really excited. I've tried all different kinds of methods that have some ups. Anyway, hopefully that'll work. And I also planted some directly into stadium woods in the cinder there. So
Is it in sun?
is it in sun? No, it is in part. Yes. It's basically shade, but not deep shade. It's a great plant, and it bumblebees pollinated. And in order for there's a nice paper was online. In order for it to be pollinated, it's best if it's planted near. And I have to put some seeds in there. But I don't know how it got pollinated because I didn't have those in there. The yellow jewelweed, and one that I had at the museum and it died out is the white flower leaf cup. Do you know what that is? It looks like it has big maple-like leaves and these insignificant little white flowers, like daisy-like flowers. Well, anyway, it's a good nectar source, and also the impatient is too. So anyway, but was covered with seeds. But it bloomed for a long time, and it's these black spikes. It was really pretty. So if you have basic soil or old cinder bed, I recommend this plant. Okay. And this one I took the other day. This is behind Christiansburg, over there where behind the police station. That's a tree ahead. So I'm thinking it'll kill itself. But I have seen them in New York City grow around the sidewalk, around fences. So maybe it won't kill itself.
What is that black thing?
It's a tire.
Oh, what? How did you get the tire on?
I didn't do it. I just found it. I'm a pretty darn good gardener when I do it. All right. I just thought that was funny. I don't know. Now, there's lots and lots and lots of really fantastic mushrooms in the fungi in the old growth forest. This is formerly Stadium Woods. And this is what I just took the other day. And that to me, the health of the woods is fairly decent considering all these fungi are in there. And that doesn't happen anyplace else. I've never seen so many fungus. I took a class from Dr. Miller years ago. And we went to pipe stem and up to Pandapas Pond. The only thing I haven't seen in there is morels and the lion's mane, but I mean, there's all kinds of stuff in there. So, and if you all, we are really, really, really close to maybe just eliminating all the multiflora rows in there, not babies, but all. So if you want to pick a species, just come in there and work on a species. I'll suggest some species for you.
I take more than 10 minutes.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'll stand up. Is this where we're supposed to stand?
Yeah, I think it's close enough to block out there.
You ready?
Ready?
Okay, I'm going to give a really short report on this little book. Jennifer was able to find a picture of it. I didn't give it to her. Anyway, I have no idea who gave it to me. I know I didn't buy it. I didn't even open it for years. But when I did, you can see the title. It looks kind of boring maybe for plant people. But when you do look at it, it's amazing how many of the plants we all go out and look for because they have beautiful flowers in the spring and the summer are actually root parasites on tree species. Now this was, I can't go into all the details, but anyway, it's not just these two people, the authors didn't just go out and find these parasites. They actually did some experiments where they had potted trees and they tried to introduce what they thought were some of these parasitic plants and see which one would go on which host. Okay, so this will be a short little report on a few things in there. The next one. Okay, we all know these two because of why? Because they don't have chlorophyll. So they're very easy to recognize as parasitic plants. But the whole idea of this is there are an awful lot of things out there we never dreamed were parasitic plants. These are both in the Orobanchaceae. Okay, next. And the not so obvious parasites, most of you, I think, know about the pirate bush up there. The Natural Heritage Property up on Four Mountain. I know Carol's been there and some of the rest of us have been up there to see the pirate bush. And it has chlorophyll. It's a shrub, but it's very rare. And it's in the Santa Lacy. Anyway, that, like a lot of the rest of the parasites mentioned in the book, have chlorophyll, so you wouldn't know they're parasitic plants. And they're not always shrubs. The interesting thing is, oh, I forgot to talk about the range. For this study, they were doing trees of the South, and they were doing from Virginia all the way down to Florida, all the way over to East Texas and Oklahoma and up to Arkansas, but they didn't include Kentucky. So that's a very large region. Okay, in that region we're talking about, what they call the South, the genus with the most parasitic plants was Agalinus. And in this book, it was published in 1978. That was in the Scrophulariaceae, and the common name for a lot of them was Gerardia. Well, now I'm using for the rest of this, the flora of Virginia, and they put it now in the Orobanchaceae, which has a lot of parasitic plants. But a lot of those, even though that's the largest group, we're in Virginia, so I thought it'd be good. Next slide. So most of those are not in Virginia. So for us, the largest number or the most prominent ones are this false, the flora calls it false yellow foxglove. The other genus was called false fox. But anyway, I think most of you know these shrubs with the big, like they're almost an inch at least yellow flowers. They're very prominent, very lovely. And it's interesting that's go to the next one. Here's some of them, and all of those listed there are native to Virginia. And just for an example, let's see, I put down how many they parasitize. Let's see. The Levigata had 13 trees that could parasitize, and I guess the Virginica, the last one, that's also a native. It parasitized 18 of the species that they tried, the tree species. But one of the things I found most interesting was the next one, the Pedicularis canadensis. Do all of you know that plant? It's one of my favorites. It's so cute. It used to be called lousewort because it has a lot of hairs all over it, and they thought lice were on those hairs. But anyway, that can be seen like at the Cascades, and it's up on Four Mountain, and it's at Pandapas Pond on some of the trails. But that plant Actually, the data he took for this plant came from someone in Michigan who studied how the hosts for that plant. And they found that it parasitized 80 species of vascular plants. Not all of them are trees. So these people didn't work on that particular one. But I think that's kind of amazing. I mean, here we go, walking through the woods, looking at these lovely flowers, and we don't think about what they're doing. Okay, thank you.
Hi, so my presentation is hopefully not too long. And it was just one day hike up in the woods, up, not far from Candapolis. And on September 19th. So start out with,
It's beautiful.
yeah. And so what's interesting about it is consider a parasitic plant. Recent studies indicate maybe it's actually not completely parasitic. It might be symbiotic.
Yeah, I'm not sure you're close enough to the microphone for the Zoom people.
Oh, sorry, Fred. The
We're not getting complaints.
so I took these pictures and entered the information on iNaturalist, and I was contacted almost immediately by a graduate student from Purdue. He's watching for Indian pipe observations because they're doing a study. He's an entomologist, and a couple of them are doing studies with thrips that apparently infest the flowers of Indian pipe. So they want, if you want to participate, let him know, and they'll send you instructions on how to collect the flowers and send them to him. So it's not very complicated. He's a rubbing alcohol works, rubber baggage. Hello, yes, okay.
Well,
Anyway, so that was kind of interesting. That there's actually a project involving the insects that colonize or utilize the Indian pipe. Next. So this is the pine sap, another in the same genus as the ghost pipe. And I asked the entomology student if he wanted a collection of this too, and he said, "Boy, that'd be great," because they figure there's slips in this as well when it's flowering. Okay. This is a death trumpet, and that's a great name to tell your friends when you're out looking at edible mushrooms, because they're going to leave it alone, and it's really good. So you want to eat those. But it keeps them away from you, so you get more.
it's beautiful.
The next one. Yeah, this one is a little tricky. This is called a base chanterelle. It's not a chanterelle, and you should not eat it. So how does it get a name like you gotta watch these people? This is a stinkhorn. This one was identified as Mutinous elegans on iNaturalist. So, but they're.
I assume you don't eat that.
You don't want to eat stinkhorns. Generally speaking, you don't want to get near the stinkhorns with much of any reason. Next. These are referred to as jack-o'-lanterns, common name. And at some stages of development, they can actually look like edible chanterelles. Somewhat, they have some different characteristics. So if you know what you're doing collecting mushrooms, you wouldn't touch them. But people who don't know mushrooms really well have to really watch out for jack-o'-lanterns. And these are starting to decay a little bit, so they don't not that attractive to think about eating. These are also pretty big. But
It's an
yeah,
amazing color, though.
don't mess with them. But yeah, and they actually, one of the reasons they're called jack-o'-lantern is because they'll actually at night, can emit light.
Oh, wow. Like firefly.
This is one of my favorites. This is, there's different common names, right? So indigo milk cap or blue latex. And the term blue latex refers to, if you kind of, you can see there's a little bit greenish on there. And that's where it's been injured a little bit. It'll ooze a white or bluish liquid, but kind of milky, but it turns green after a while of exposure to air. So it's kind of a cool one.
That does not look edible.
Oh, no, they're
It
delicious. Oh, yeah, they're wonderful. This is another milk cap. And this is the corrugated cap milkweed, the Lactophyllus clarius. And it was, up in the woods. Now, this one and another one in the same genus are associated with the ghost pipe. Because you're not going to find ghost pipes where you don't have the right mycorrhizal stuff growing.
Fungi.
Yeah. So, yeah, I didn't know that. This is all new stuff to me, but yeah, they have to have the right connection with the tree, which is through this fungus connection. This is the other one in the genus that we collected. And again, these are pretty tasty. So, and this is the tawny milkcap is one of the common names.
Something young old man.
Okay, I don't know how many are familiar with, the edible mushrooms, but next, please. Yeah, so Old Man of the Woods usually is all really dark. You see the dark spots on it. Usually the whole thing is that color. So this is a young, recently emerged fruited body, and it didn't look like any I'd ever seen before, so I got a shot of it. But my friend Jeff, who actually is the one who knows which mushrooms are which, so if he says you can eat it, believe it. Otherwise, but this one was interesting in its color, but he does not harvest these because when you cook it, it says to him, if you cook it up really well, said it was like eating a slug cooked in its own slump. So, yeah. Not recommended this. Thanks very much. Oh, yeah.
I just have a question, because I don't know mushrooms very well. Can you eat are all the edible ones possible to eat without cooking? Or do you have to cook some so that it's?
I had a mushrooms talk the other day where this guy knows his mushrooms. And this is a whole room of Floyd County people that knew their mushrooms, and they say always cook them. And
Yes.
say at least 15 minutes.
She was just about to say.
Yeah, first of all, you don't get the nutrients until you.
Exactly.
Oh,
It has the outside of the pipe. I didn't know this. I don't know that. The outside of the cell has pipes. So you have to cook it. To get rid of the pipe. Okay. Otherwise, you won't get the.
it's just interesting. Because a lot of people like it
And
fresh.
there are some that people will slice up and eat because the flavor is so good.
Yeah. I've
Um,
seen that.
without
Fresh.
cooking,
Yeah.
they put it in salads and stuff like that. I don't do that. And the other thing I would like to mention is the first time you're eating a mushroom, you want to eat just a little bit and one kind, so that you're not getting, a massive intestinal distress, because different people have different reactions to these. So you want to be, even if it's a chanterelle, the first time, take it easy.
It can affect your digestive.
Yeah, it may or may not, but you find out and then you go wild.
Well, there's a great source of farmers market. There's a farmer from Christiansburg, and I can't remember the name of the farm now, but he sells about 6 different kinds. Yeah, Dental, and they're wonderful mushrooms.
And we collect, yes,
Oh, I was just, where did you say you went on your hike?
it was not too far from Pandapas, down,
Just-
farther down the hollow.
She here?
So. These have been great. I've so enjoyed listening to whether it's studies or findings or projects. I thought I would share with you the land journey that we've been on for 3 years. When we bought our rural property out Mount Tabor, I connected with the NRCS to journey alongside us, to advise us. And he put me in touch with several professors, and they've come and had classes out there. Beth, you'd be glad to know that so far we've removed almost 3 acres, taking measurements from a satellite, 3 acres of autumn olive. And we're getting ready to embark on removing the Japanese honeysuckle now. And so it's been fun. NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Service. They have been a wealth of knowledge. And right now, and I didn't get a slide of it, but we're preparing a 1.5 acre, it's part of a large field we share with our neighbor. We're going to burn it or controlled burn for 3 years every spring. And then if we need to utilize any kind of herbicide, we will. But we want to see what that native bank in there is, because right now it's the fescue, so it has no wildlife value. And that is our main goal, to attract wildlife. How many acres do you have? 20, almost 27. So, and it's nice because it's surrounded by other acreage that has kept old, well, forests, not quite old growth yet, but
How much of it is forested?
the majority of our property is forested. We have several acres for our horses to graze. I would say maybe 1.5 acres that surrounds our home. And then the 1.5 acres at the top of the hill that looks right onto Brush Mountain that we're converting. So my passion is butterflies. They're beautiful, but they're amazing the way that they utilize their life cycle. They utilize all the plants in different ways, and creating that habitat has been my greatest focus. So we can go ahead. This just shows right out our back doors, the vegetable garden that is still there, but now it's a pollinator and native host plants for butterflies. We took out, in the back right corner, there was a large butterfly bush, and I replaced it with cup plant, bee balm, and hollow joe pie weed. And the butterfly, it's just clouds of butterflies come July, and then increase the number of milkweed species there. I will say, I think the majority of the host plants, trees and shrubs, tulip poplar to ashes to not sweet bay. I'm sorry. We have some of those. There's just I knew I would forget it. Sorry. Anyways, I have a lot of. Go ahead. Excuse me, I get nervous. So this is looking out onto the grazing fields for the horses
And then to the left is the horse barn, and to the right, you can see the little roof that's our home. So just to get an idea of how it's really open, even though it's in the valley. And I think that that attracts a lot of butterflies too. Okay, so of course, milkweed, she had a few plants, the former owner had a few milkweed plants in the garden. I basically let them take over one whole side, and the pollinators are incredible for the milkweed plants in the communities. And we'll just go through, that's a little wood in some of the grasses. And then the second plant that has been huge involved here is the cup plant. I know y'all know that, all these master gardeners, and it's been a huge attractor for butterflies. And that just shows how it holds the water. And then that is the bee balm, and that was the Didyma, Monarda didyma species. And then you can see the cup plant right next to it. And the Monarda didyma, it loves, the pipevine swallowtails love it. There's another cup plant, which I just think they're beautiful. There is a swallowtail on the didyma. And I made it a goal this summer to learn the fritillaries in my area and the swallowtails. You know, the universe just can meet you. This butterfly came and I was like, I have never seen you, but you are huge, you're beautiful. When it flew next to my ear, I could hear the wings. It was just like a gift. And I was like, I've never seen it before. It's a Diana butterfly. And I hope to see more. We stopped utilizing weed and feed so that more violets would grow. And I've seen a great increase in the number of fritillaries that we've had the past 3 years. That's just another shot with the blue bee. Beth might know which one that is. And there's a sapum, skipper, the pearl crescents with the azure butterfly coming down to one of the species of butterfly weed. And there's an American lady. There. Yeah, it's neat. I photographed a whole series of well-lived life on butterflies. Okay. And I just loved that. They just live in such harmony, all the butterflies. It just amazes me. That's the monarch, of course, and the eastern yellow tiger swallowtail. And the monarch on its host plant, and that's this, you know, the common milkweed, Asclepias syrica. And here, one of the meadows right now does have a number of common milkweed in it. And so many fritillaries are there in the late spring. That's a hollow Joe Pye weed. Let's see, and I wrote down how to pronounce that. I'll probably know better than you. Oh, now I can't find it. Sorry. Anyways, know that plant. That's going to be a big plant in the Virginia Native Plant Society in the coming year. And from late June to late August, I could not, every time I was in my garden, there would be at least a dozen butterflies on that plant alone. There's 18 there if we went in and zoomed in and counted them. But I just tried where I saw in the meadows and different parts of our land, I tried to recreate that in the garden. Okay. Again,
How tall did those get?
the Joe Pye weed, it got 6 to 8 feet. So I put it in the back of our garden.
Yeah, ours got like 8 foot or more, and just tied them up with string in that, so they wouldn't fall over.
That was smart.
Yeah.
Thank you. And it's the pronunciation. It is everywhere, the hollow Joe Pye. No,
I know. Some of them live in Philadelphia. I have an old man in Philadelphia.
thank you. I just like it
So
You have fencing around these beds.
I do not know. And a deer has eaten my New England aster. I do. I have 2 dogs that will chase the deer if we see them out there. And there you can see a lot of varieties of black swallowtails, and then of course the eastern yellow tiger at the top there. But I'm telling you, if people ask for what plants to grow, if we can have those at the sale, I think it would, they'd be so happy when they got home with it in years to come. It's just another, there are a lot of butterflies in Virginia. And if you've ever read Doug Tallamy's book, he gives these humongous numbers, over 400 butterflies utilize, say, the oak tree. Okay, well, what butterflies would we find here? And I found a great source that you may be aware of, Harry Pavilon. He compiled a list of the butterflies of Virginia and broke it down to each county. So it was so much easier than I went through and marked my butterflies for the area. And then someone said, oh, there's just so many. And I'm like, I know. And I would say, just grab your little handy thing. You never know what you're gonna see, especially little skippers and things. And of course, this was the one thing that did not have the Diana butterfly on it. That's what I was right. Yes, and so that was the one on my radar. Did you see them? They're just amazing.
Too many painted ladies.
I haven't seen one, but that doesn't mean I don't have.
I had one in the garden at Barnhart this year.
Did
What?
you?
Painted lady. Oh.
So I just cannot. This has just been a lifesaver. Yes, and he has a great forward to it, and he lists lots of great resources.
Where's he from,
Harry, Richmond. Yes, so he collects it through all different sources. The information.
Is he still alive?
He is, yes, and he's active. I'm not a huge Facebook person, but I love native plants of Virginia and Virginia butterflies. And he, has weighed in on several butterflies that I wasn't sure, is this a Gulf fritillary or an Aphrodite? And, fritillaries can be really variable. And he weighs in on his professional opinion that I trust. I don't know, Bruce, are you on there? Are you on the Facebook group for Virginia butterflies? No,
Oh,
okay.
well, I was, I think I caught.
Okay, all right. It's just social media can have so many gifts to it. So, and then I just discovered anybody that has an iPhone, you can hit that little eye in the bottom of your photo where you can identify it, and it brings up BugNet. And I'm not saying it's the perfect identifier, but occasionally if I can't, I'm not quite sure which one, I will utilize it. And technology is amazing. So I'm a field guide girl myself, but I can find good uses for these things. I think that's it. Oh, and yeah, there's my life copy of the butterflies that I've been seeing.
So hopefully we have a field trip here.
And I was just about to say, I'd love to host you all anytime that you'd like to come. And if you'd like to have a meeting there, we can certainly do that. July is spectacular.
Can I ask, did you buy the old Rudolph property, or do you know who they are? He was the librarian in tech long ago, and they had horses, and it sounds like you're in about, are you after that sharp bend?
Yes.
That sounds like there's no.
Closer to the winery, way.
I haven't been out there in years. I used to visit them.
Yeah.
But yeah, because they had horses, so they would have had some open land. Yeah, it was lovely out there.
I love it. Bought it
So
from-
you didn't buy their property?
No, bacon.
I know who's on there now.
I'm sorry.
Who lives on the Rudolph property now?
Oh, I'm not
I
sure.
mean, it just sounded like the description of their property.
Yeah. I'm sure it's still breathing my neighbors.
They moved out to Nebraska. I visited them in Lincoln once. She kind of wanted to stay here, but guess he was still working.
I feel like I'm at home here in the Blue
Listen,
Ridge
don't ever
Mountains.
start trying to identify moths, right, Bruce?
Where did you get most of your plans?
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot from Jen at
Oh.
Draper Hills,
Okay.
Ian at Woodbrush, and then of course our plant sale.
The Joe Pies. I mean, yeah.
Is
the
that-
Joe Pies.
Yes.
I have a hard time finding them. Okay. You have Joe Pies?
Well, this year.
Okay, good, okay, all right. Okay. I'll take this off. So I took with my husband a trip to Maine in September. And that's where these slides are from. One of the first places that we visited was the Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens. And it's a really large 300-acre garden. And they have a number of 15, 20 different little garden areas. All the pictures I have are from their bee and butterfly habitat area. So, okay. And right off the bat, my slides are not so good, but right off the bat, I liked this place because on the edges of their parking lot, they had mountain mint growing. And there were little bees all over it. It was between and then in the median strips, they had native plants, but between the parking lot and the sidewalks was just nothing but mountain mint and an echinacea here and there. But one thing that I thought was really pretty in their bee habitat, pollinator habitat area was the mass plantings. They had the Rudbeckia against the ironweed, and it was just beautiful. And one thing, the next slide is the same. They just had tons of them, and so it really was good for attracting a lot of insects, I think. And one neat thing about living in a colder climate, one of the few things neat about living in a colder climate is you've got that condensed summer. And so a lot of things that don't bloom at the same time for us bloom simultaneously in their seasons. And so you don't get the dead looking, black-eyed Susans against the ironweed. You get them right together, and it really makes for pretty gardens. They had a butterfly house, and I just have a couple pictures from in there. They had the sneezeweed planted, and the monarchs were all over the sneezeweed. I was really pleased at how many native plants they used, because not all butterfly gardens in big gardens do use natives. So they were really good about native hosts or native nectar plants. Oh, these are not very good slides, but another just close up of the monarch on the sneezeweed. And then I have a bunch of pictures of signs. I am always fond of how people use signs. And so the next 10 slides are different signs that I think some of you that are working in public gardens might be interested in signage too. So that's why I included that. So this was just a little temporary sign. They had several of them. There's a Luna moth caterpillar right there, but they would move things, you know, around daily or afternoon to morning to let folks find these critters. And even with the sign there, it was a little bit tough finding. They blend in so well. The next several signs, these were especially pretty. They were, I believe they were a metal sign, but they had beautiful photos on them of the plants. And then it was very interesting interpretive information about the connection between insects and the plant. And I'm
Laser printed.
I think they might be. I actually sent them an email today thinking somebody's going to ask me, and I did not. I don't remember, but I haven't heard back yet. But I can let you know. And I'm sorry you can't read them. Doggone it, because they were really interesting. Maybe I'll send them out if anybody's interested, because I like stealing, you know, verbiage from plants and to put up signs. So this same type of sign for the aster and also for the maple tree. Okay. This one I thought was kind of unusual. You don't often see people interpreting or talking much about the eggs of butterflies. And I thought that was really, really nice and interesting, matching up the butterflies with their eggs. And then this one was a cool one because it was an interactive. They had that magnifying glass attached to the sign, and the kids were really, you know, they loved being able to look at the bees with the magnifying glass. And
How
so
do they know they're friendly? It says these friendly bees.
because most native bees don't,
Sometimes they sting really hard, the native.
natives, I thought most natives don't sting.
Maybe.
But
Really,
maybe
some
these
do.
particular ones are not stingers.
Yeah, there's the bee to the bees. That's
Friendly bee.
Who's getting even married?
And then they had a list of the different varieties of bees. And then you can't read it. I'm really apologize for that. But there's one there that I recognized as Beth's email address, when I always just thought you were a fan of Mexican food. And there's a chili, or I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but. Oh, and this was cool because they had also, in addition to native bees, they had some honeybee hives behind this fencing, and they had little replicas of the honeycomb with different tidbits of information inside each little comb cell. And then some of them, some of them were clear and you could look in and to the hives, and they had lots of interesting information. What's the bee's favorite color? And the kids were really liked looking through the holes to the into the hives too. So that was a really neat. I really thought they did a great job of interpreting at this garden. Okay. The next stop is in Acadia National Park. And this was a visitor center at Jordan Pond. And it was it was a national park. They should have native plants, but not all of them do. And especially at their more manicured areas. And I was very impressed. I mean, there are some non-natives in here, but there was a ton of Joe Pye. And I thought what was so neat about this, in the next slide too, is how they made the natives look so attractive. I mean, there's not anyone that wouldn't like to have a garden like that. And they had Baptisia, they had Joe Pye, they had mountain mint, Culver's root. And just, I mean, there were some non-natives in there too, but it was primarily natives, and it was just a beautiful area. And that was a neat view. You can see how many Joe Pies they had, and this big field behind it. This is non-native plant information, but they serve tea and popovers, and they set this big field up. And this day it looked like it was going to rain any minute. And they went ahead, they put the umbrellas out, and they served their tea and popovers next to the Joe Pye weeds. So that was really cool. And then this is a different area, but I was really impressed with how many native plants I saw, you know, in little state parks, just on the side of the road, in a town around a light post, and then a lot in people's yards. And what I thought was even more unusual was they seem to use hedges of native plants a lot. And this was someone's yard. I took a picture that we were walking by. And this maybe is not so just a hedge, but everything was same height and kind of appeared to be hedge-like. But the next couple slides, this we saw everywhere against the road, between the road and the home. There were hedges between the houses. There were hedges, and against, like between the sandy beach and the houses was a buffer of a hedge, and there were always goldenrods blooming, asters blooming. And I just thought, you know, Maine has really got it together. And there was a wild rose that was really prolific in there with it, and I thought that was going to be a native wild rose too. But then I found out, the next slide, oh, there's another view of you can see those rose hips though, they're huge. The rose hips were about 1.5 inches long, but this is a Japanese rose, and I went online, and it's really causing a problem in coastal Maine and probably some of the other coasts. And I think what's happened is people planted it for erosion, and it's just thrived, and it was not a native, so I was kind of disappointed in my kudos to Maine. But it made me feel like there must be some kind of substitute. I really like that hedge idea. That was such a nice group of, I mean, it made me think of Doug Tallamy's, you know, turn your lawn into national park, and because there was just so much of it. So if we can figure out something to do instead of Rosa rugosa, that would be a good hedge, and it also, you know, protected the goldenrod and the asters in there. So it was a nice combination and a nice looking thing, but it just happened to be a very bad plant. So.
You know, had they had their first frost yet? It doesn't look like.
No, I'm sure they hadn't, because I was seeing lots of plants. September. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
I want to thank Jen for putting all of this together, because it's worked so smoothly, and and you have that technical knowledge that a lot of us, but I don't have anyway. So I thank you for that. And I want to thank everybody for being here, and also for the people who've done presentations. I think we should do this twice a year, because it's so interesting, and all of us have knowledge and skills to share, and I think we ought to do more of this. So Thank you for that. Let me see. I want to apologize first to the purists out there because most of the plants in my yard that are native plants are cultivars. And I know that there are some people that don't consider it a native if it's a named cultivar, or if it's a hybrid of two natives. But I also want to thank those purists because I've become educated and I'm doing a better job of choosing plants that are more straight species. But where I am right now with that purest gray area is that if it has been discovered and it was a natural cross or a natural variation or what do you call it? Sport, yeah, a sport or I consider that if nature made it, I consider that a native plant. But what happens is that when nurserymen name a cultivar, they usually name it because it has bigger berries or more berries or fall color or more blooms in the spring. It's an ornamental characteristic that they're using as a basis for that naming. And I'm looking forward to the day when we get cultivar names because it's better for wildlife or it's better for the ecosystem. It contributes more to the whole ecosystem. So I'm looking forward to that day. So anyway, this is landscaping with native plants for fall color and texture. And I would love to be able to use that. Thank you. So let me see, what is it down here?
You can either
Oh,
click
yeah.
directly just in the middle
Oh,
of the
okay.
screen, or you can use the
Okay.
arrow.
All right. This was the absolute star of my yard this past fall. It was prettier than it's ever been. And I have read that the color, it does vary. And sometimes there's a lot of purple in there and you can see only a little bit, but it's always yellow and orange and red and purple all on the same plant at the same time. It was absolutely fantastic this year. And it is variable with the weather, but this is planted in a wet bed. You can see behind it, there's a lot of grass. That's where my drainage field is. And every time I dig in this bed, it's been wet, even when it's been dry and droughty. And I kept on planting plants there like echinacea, and they would die. And then I would plant something else, maybe Gara, and then it would die. And then I started noticing that everything that was dying was liked good drainage. And I thought, well, it's downhill from my drainage field. Duh, it's a wet bed. So then I just put things there that like to be wet. So this is one of them. It tolerates wet soils. And it has been there since, it's been there for 18 years. It's only about maybe 5 feet tall at the most. And it does sucker just a little bit, but not a lot. And I do want to say that it's a named cultivar, Mount Airy. And yeah, full sun. Yeah, it likes full sun too, if you want that color. It doesn't color up quite as well if it gets some shade. Why would anyone plant the non-native burning bush? Goodness gracious, this is so much more beautiful. And okay, now, but yet there's more. It not only has really nice fall color, it has really terrific blossoms, little bottle brush blossoms in the spring, and this is pretty early in April. And when I worked in the nursery industry, this plant, we'd have all the plants out. We had no customers because it was cold and it was rainy, and this plant was gorgeous. And then it finished blooming, and then it got warm, and everybody came in, and everybody walked right by this plant because, it's just leaves, sticks and leaves. So it was really hard to sell because nobody ever saw how pretty it was in the spring. Oh, and it is thought, this was found at Mount Airy Arboretum in Ohio by Michael Durr himself. Now, this I am assuming is a natural cross. And since it has never seeded, and since hybrids are quite often sterile, I'm assuming that it is, like they said, it's a natural cross between those two. Fothergilla gardenii and Fothergilla latifolia. But in Michael Durr's 6th edition of Manual of Wooded Landscape Plants, it is listed as a cultivar of Fothergilla major, which I'm not sure why that's. Yes.
Does it attract any insects?
You know, it does, but I don't see very many on it. I know that Beth, when you were at Mount Cuba, you found a garden phlox that was a named cultivar, but it was covered with pollinators, right?
Actually, I found it in Ohio at my daughter's nursery. I was looking at nursery plants, the ones that attract the most insects. And that one had a lot of insects, but now it's recommended by a lot of people because but it has a smaller flower. It was a select, it was a natural select.
Yeah, yeah. And also I got a hydrangea arborescens Annabelle. And Barb Glazer has both the straight species and the Annabelle next to each other. The straight species has more pollinators on it. So you don't know which way it goes,
And
which is.
Annabelle was found in the wild by 2 ladies that were horseback riding.
Is that right?
So it's a natural occurrence, but it doesn't have, I've never seen any insect.
Really?
I think that's one of the, here is one of the hydrangeas is not having any pollinators, and it might be Annabelle.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm looking forward to named cultivars that contribute to the ecosystem more or better. So anyway, I'm interested in the minutia of where does it come from and how was it named, and I have some of that information in here. So I hope if you all aren't just okay. This is in the same bed downhill from the drainage field. In the foreground is the Clethra alnifolia and its ruby spice. Oddly enough, it has both pink blossoms and white blossoms on it. So I don't know whether they maybe grafted the pink onto a white rootstock or whether it's reverted somehow. I don't know. But in the back is a yellowwood, which is the straight species. And on either side is Itea. It's hard to see, and also in the shade of this tree, it's hard to see, but it colors up a burgundy. And I have pictures of those later on. And back here is our native dogwood. So it's pretty reliably red, but I like the red, and I didn't plan this. It just kind of happened that I've got the yellow here and then the burgundy on either side of it. So, okay. And there's more. This is the Clethra blooming. It's just so spectacular. I don't, of course, it tolerates wet soil. And it suckers a lot too, particularly if the more moisture it has, the more it will sucker. So you have to either plan on, pulling it up or just let it take over. It's a wonderful plant to put in an area where it gets a lot of drainage. The water gardens that they have that run off of properties or parking lots and such. Well, it blooms in the shade. It has wonderfully sweet fragrance, and it is just a lovely, lovely plant. It was discovered as a sport of another named cultivar, and I couldn't find any information, so I have no idea how we came to this, but yet there's more. This is the yellowwood, is the straight species. It blooms. This is the whole tree blooming, but oh my gosh, those blossoms are just fabulous, and they're sweetly fragrant too. It is not native to Virginia, and it is a very rare tree. And I think it might be a rare tree because, and you can't see it in these pictures, but this trunk is bolted together. It's got 3 bolts in it because that beautiful vase shape has very weak angles and it will split very easily. So you either have to get somebody to prune it really regularly or, you know, just bolt it together and hope for the best. But it's very pretty in the fall. Okay. This is May. Okay, and on to Winter King, the green hawthorn, Crataegus viridis. Okay, this is just such a spectacular plant. I really think it's just wonderful. I believe it is a natural, naturally occurring. It is in full sun, facing south, and it is in well-drained soil. And some of the literature says that this is a vase-shaped tree, but I've never seen this vase shape at all. If anything, it seems to be spreading. It seems to be at least as wide as it is tall, and maybe even a little wider. But it is just covered with berries. And I put it right outside my bedroom window because in the winter, when I don't go out in the yard very much, there's not a whole lot to look at. I pull up the blinds every morning and this is the thing that I see. Also, the literature says that this particular cultivar has really nice fall color. And I have never seen good fall color on this tree of mine. And I don't know whether it's just doesn't have fall color, or maybe it is because it is affected by the apple cedar rust. And right around, this is facing south from my porch. Around to the right on the other side of the house is a red cedar, a Virginia red cedar, which is the cedar that isn't the cedar, but it is the apple. And behind the people behind me have apple trees. So I'm going to have that apple cedar rust. And quite often in the summer, I'll see those berries and they'll look a little orange, but that's because they have that rust fuzz on the berries. But it doesn't seem to affect this. Also, when the berries fall off, they sprout. So I don't think it's a hybrid. I think it's just a natural mutation of some kind. But anyway, but wait, there's more. This has the most beautiful exfoliating bark. It's just spectacular. And you don't really notice it in the summer, but in the fall when there's not as much to look at, it's really pretty. Oh yeah, and Michael Durr says he thinks that it's a cultivar, it's a hybrid, but because the berries are fertile, I don't. It might be. What do I know? Michael Durr knows a lot more than I do. The original tree is about 100 years old. But wait, there's more. Oh, it's gorgeous in the spring. This was the end of April, and it's just covered with blossoms, and it's also covered with pollinators, bees and such. You can just hear them buzzing. You get close to the tree and you hear this roar of buzzing. Okay. Moving on to, I don't have one of these. I really am sorry that I don't. But I just don't think there's anything prettier in the fall. There's a planting of this, the Calicarpa American Beauty Berry, a planting on the corner of Progress and Turner Streets in Blacksburg. It's very, very pretty right now. Oh yeah, I fell in love with this plant at an arboretum. I've forgotten where. It was planted on both sides of an outdoor staircase, and I almost tripped down the stairs, gawking at the berries. I was just going, I've never seen this before. It is absolutely beautiful. I can't believe it. And it also comes, if you want to get a cultivar, it comes in a white form. And Carl Absher has the white form, and it's really, really eye-catching. Unfortunately, my beautyberry is a hybrid of 2 Asian species, and I so wish I hadn't gotten that. I just have half a mind to dig it up and replace it with this one. Okay. Now, native grasses are just marvelous in the fall and in the winter. Mine turns a rosy purple in the fall. And during the year, it's kind of a gray, blue, green. Anybody know how to pronounce this? Schizocrinum, scopularium, scoparium. Anyway, little blue stem is native to most counties in Virginia. And I see these little bitty birds hanging on the stems, eating the seeds. It's a really nice plant. Okay. I didn't know this. Little blue stem provides necessary overwintering habitat and resources for many insects and birds. Female bumblebee queens nest at the base of bunch grasses like the little blue stem, where they are protected until they emerge in the spring. So don't cut anything back until, you know, later in the spring, because you don't want to disturb those bumblebee queens. Okay. And the switchgrass, which is, I fell in love with, let me see, this is heavy metal. I fell in love with heavy metal at the Green Springs Park in Arlington. I was touring and I rounded a corner and just, it was right there. And I just will never forget. It was just, I caught my breath. It was just so gorgeous. And so then of course I had to have one, and I've got 3 of them. This is Shenandoah, and it's really very, very pretty, but you could also see, I almost took a close up of, I think in here somewhere you can see that something has been making a nest, some butterfly or insect. I also have Dallas blues, but anyway, it's native to just a smattering of counties in Virginia, all over, you know, kind of speckled all over Virginia. It's hard to put it in one particular area. Okay, back to the Itea. This was taken 2 years after I planted them, and they're in full sun right now. So they took on a very, very dark burgundy color. And I believe that it is also naturally occurring. I believe Michael Durr found it, and it turns out, this is the minutia that I just love, originated from seeds or seedlings which Josephine Henry brought to Pennsylvania from Georgia. To recognize the supplier of the plants and the college, the selection was named Henry's Garnet. This is a naturally occurring cultivar. It does bloom, but it's not spectacular. But right now, this Japanese maple died. I put the yellow wood in its place, and now they're in a lot of shade, except for the one over here, gets some morning sun. But they are still reliably burgundy. It's just not quite that dark. It's a reddish color. Okay. Well, now this is a picture from Barb Glazer's house. I've got one. I'm not sure if this one is a cultivar. It might be. The one that I have isn't in a lot of shade, and it didn't color up as pretty as this one. Anyway, the oak leaf hydrangea. Mine has a more muted red and burgundy fall color. I love the bold texture and the huge blossoms. Boy, you cannot miss this plant. I think there's just a place for this kind of bold texture in the landscape. I believe the species suckers quite a bit. I took care of some at a church that I took care of the landscaping for a while. And it kind of got I think it was a straight species. It kind of got too big for the space. I had to really whack it back hard one year. And then the next year it didn't bloom. So just like most hydrangeas, they will bloom either on new wood or old wood. This apparently blooms on old wood. So if you cut it back, don't worry, it'll bloom the following year. And this is mine. It's a cultivar called Munchkin. It does not sucker. It stays really small. And as the year progresses, these white blossoms turn kind of a reddish pink, and it's just beautiful all the time practically. And yes, if once the leaves go away, you can see that the bark exfoliates too. So that's very nice. And another one that does that is the 9 bark. Have you noticed that? And yeah, because I have a
That's why it's named 9 bark.
9 bark. Oh, because it.
9 layers of bark.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. That's a nice exfoliating one too. So, all right. Now, even I don't consider this a native, although it is a hybrid of 2 natives. It's Foster holly. It is absolutely covered with berries all winter long. It is absolutely beautiful. I have a whole row of them in the back of my property. And it was absolutely created by human hands. And this is, again, I love this minutia about this plant. Hollies are promiscuous. Any species of male will pollinate any other species of female. They just have to be blooming at the same time. That's really the only catch to it. And in the front of my property, I have another cultivar. What's it called? No, not Dragon Lady. It's a blue holly. It was also created by human hands. And because it doesn't have a male, the berries never turn red. It never looks like anything. And then the green berries drop off, and it's very disappointing. But this it is parthenocarpic. Now, if you like to play dictionary games with people who know 6 languages, this one will stump them. If you just memorize this and play the dictionary game, parthenocarpic, it's similar to the virgin birth of the plant kingdom. The plant produces berries that mature to red and persist all winter without the benefit of fertilization. I've never seen anything sprout. So, and then, the best part of it is, besides the red berries, in the spring, a huge flock of probably 200, I've counted more than 200 cedar waxwings spend several days roosting all over my trees. And then every now and then they get hungry again. They go, they clean off every berry, and then they finish, and then they're gone off to something else. But that's like better than those berries. So I think I've got another one. Yeah, there it is. Now also on the Virginia Tech campus at the main entrance, before they changed the main entrance, it was right on Main Street. There was a hedge that I thought, now what is this? And I took a closer look at it. Well, doggone it, it was Foster holly. They had clipped it into a tight little hedge, a little formal hedge. And I thought, well, I would have never thought that, but that's what you can do with this tree. I have not pruned these, so it has a much more loose and open look to it. And I prefer that it gives a more casual look to your landscape rather than a tight formal hedge. So, all right. You can see this from my house, which is probably at least 50 or more feet from the house. But you can see the red berries all winter long. It's lovely. There it is. Thank you.
That was really interesting. Oh, thank you. To all of you. Yes. And I just wanted to say, I also bought this fall plants from Brenda from the Ladybug. So great source is right here in our chapter. Have some food before you leave.
Yeah, before, I don't know what time you're closing down at the center. Yeah. You might want to grab food and, you know.
Um,